Allegiance. Commissioner Whitey, would you please start us off?
Screen here. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. City Manager, may I please have roll call?
Thank you, Chair. Let the record reflect that all commissioners are present, including both alternates.
Okay. Do any commissioners have any conflict of interest on any agenda items tonight? I see no hands. Please let the record reflect that. Does anybody have any changes to the agenda?
No changes, Chair.
Chair, I will let you know for the record that our Zoom session is not operational. So we are doing a YouTube stream live, but I just wanted for the record to reflect that we do not have Zoom capabilities. However, the public's not able to interact via Zoom anyway.
Okay.
But just so you're aware,
All righty.
for public comment.
Thank you. Public comment. There are no members of the public present today. Presentations. Governance manual overview.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to handle this one. I'm going to go pretty fast. I sent this, let me minimize this for you guys. I sent a few weeks ago the governance manual. As some of you may be aware, the Planning Commission previously had a rules and regulations manual separate from the Planning Commission. So what we went ahead and did was create a governance manual that addresses both City Council and the Planning Commission. What we're relatively expecting of the Commission is at some point for you to peruse this and get familiar with it. But what I'm going to go through very briefly is just a high-level overview of what it is. As you can see, there's a whole lot of information of it, the majority of which does apply to Council, but a ton of it does apply to the Commission. But as you can see, it's basically a comprehensive document approved by official resolution that outlines the currently accepted practices, principles, and policies for the City of Cloverdale's both review authorities, being the Planning Commission and the City Council, as well as subcommittees, ad hoc boards, etc. So as we go through this, really briefly, when we did it, we also adopted the mission, vision, and values, which are now on our website. And again, I'm not going to read all this. It's available online on our website. But I just want you to be aware, mostly to say that we have, in fact, presented it to the Commission. This gives some basic info about the type of city we are. It goes through the different structure we are. We're a manager, a council manager form of government. Then we get into some council commission information. I'm going to go straight to the Planning Commission. As you know, it's comprised of 5 regular members and 2 alternates. All commissioners are appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the City Council. Regular members serve 4-year terms and alternates serve 2-year terms. Alternates may be seated when a regular member is absent, with rotation between the 2 alternates. Commissioners serve at the pleasure of the City Council and may be removed or reappointed. A lot of these, as you can see, are codified inside of our municipal code. Basically, the goal of this, it explains who you are, what you are. There's some compensation and benefits. As you all know, there is a Planning Commission received compensation, the amount of $50 per meeting attended. If you haven't received any compensation lately, I suggest talking to Rolf over there. He keeps track of that, right? But honestly, if you haven't, make sure to reach out to me. I want to make sure you guys are getting compensated correctly. As you can see, each section kind of has like the eligibility requirements, has a council section and a commission section. So really, obviously, this is defined to the commission, so I'm just going to go through those really quickly. All of you obviously are eligible to be commissioners. This is what happens in a vacancy, assuming office. Most of you are very familiar with this, but basically we memorialized a lot of information and we, rather than redlining what was the rules and regs in yours, because there were some conflicts, there was a lot of overlap, we just decided to merge them and have one overarching document. So it's basically what this does. Feel free to have me stop if any of this is really of interest to you at the time. This goes into For example, since we are selecting a chair tonight, I'm going to go over this section. But really, the chair serves as the presiding officer of the Planning Commission. As you know, opens and adjourns meetings, facilitates deliberations and votes, manages speaker recognition. And while the presiding officer generally takes a less active role in discussions, they retain full rights to participate and typically speak last. They should avoid making or seconding motions except when necessary. Again, that's all just more traditional, not required. Signs official documents approved by the commission, so resolutions. And they collaborate with the community development director, which currently is our city manager. Some of the stuff needs to jump to the other pages, but roles in an emergency. In case we ever have an emergency, the Planning Commission does not have a role in any of our emergency operations, so you don't need to report to the EOC other than if you're interested in volunteering. But just so you're all aware. Communications is the same for both council and the commission. Basically, you have every right to interact with staff, but being a council manager form of government, you just have to go through the city manager first. I know we're a smaller town. Many of you know the different directors, whether you know friends with or talk with like the park superintendent. You can communicate with them, but if it's on an official business, we prefer you go to the city manager first, just so he's aware that you're going to be interacting with staff, especially as a commissioner. Feel free as a resident to speak with them as much as you'd like. But in your official capacity, you should be going through the city manager first. Let's see. Like basically what I said, planning commissioners are encouraged to maintain open and respectful communication with the community development director, city planner, and other relevant staff to support informed decision making. It says community development director, as you know, that position's vacant. Kevin's handling that right now. So please go through Kevin. The collective responsibility is something that we do, the City Council and Planning Commission. And I want to go over this one really quickly. It basically says, respectively operate as a collective decision-making bodies with no individual members holding authority above that of their colleagues. Each individual is free to express their views during deliberation. Once the council or commission reaches a majority decision, all members are encouraged to support and uphold that decision publicly and in practice. Sorry, I'm at a weird angle. If a council member or commissioner continues to publicly disagree with the majority decision, the council member or commissioner must be clear that they are expressing their individual opinions and not the position of the council or commission. This principle ensures institutional integrity by reinforcing democratic governance and maintaining clear, unified policy direction, even in the presence of disagreement. It's relatively self-explanatory, but if any time you guys do have any questions, please let me know. We're going to go through this a little bit faster than I am now. But basically, now we don't need to do that. While we're in this section, just a reminder that you all have to fill out your Form 700s if you haven't already. You all both take ethics training. So if you have any questions about when you are due, let me know. I have a chart. Same with the harassment training, both mandated. This is a friendly reminder that any email that you send utilizing a city device or interacting with city staff is PRA-able, as we like to call it, but basically the California Public Records Act, I'm not going to read this whole thing for you, but in the interest of transparency, we will surrender any and all emails for the most part, unless there is a consultation with our city attorney and there's some kind of privilege. But for the most part, with the Planning Commission, the interactions we all have are available to the public. So I like to remind council members and commissioners, anything you email, as long as you're okay with it being in the Press Democrat, press send. This just kind of reminds you that the city manager's office, city attorney's office, and my office are available. We want to support you to the best that we can. And we give you emails. Issuances, as you know, or as you can maybe see, our chair currently has an iPad issued by the city. One of my goals is to get city issued iPads to all of the council members. We found a potential deal. So that might be coming soon in the next budget year. So starting in July. Don't get your hopes up, but this is a reminder. We have not officially adopted any form of parliamentary code. So if you're in your deliberations and you want a point of order and you want to really get involved in these different things, there are various forms called, Robert's Rules of Order. We have not adopted any of them. Ours is more of, in essence, we follow some of these, but it was at the council's direction that they did not want to adopt either version. They're very prescriptive, and they're actually relatively hard to maintain as far as moving business along quickly. So that was one of the reasons. But you'll notice every once in a while we'll still do point of orders. We'll still follow it, but it's not adopted by the council or the commission. There's regular meetings, special meetings. This kind of goes into various types of meetings that we can have in the council. As you all know, we can have joint meetings, which we've had a few of. And again, if you want to dive into this, you are more than welcome. It's available on our website, and I've emailed it to you. Attendance, again, we look for regrets only. Obviously, we need a quorum to make any actions and to have the meeting. But I'm not gonna seek a quorum every meeting. We just, expect that you guys will be here. But if you're not, please let us know just to make sure that we can have a quorum. Seating arrangements, the presiding officer, mayor, or chair sits at the center of the dais. And I'm saying this today because we may have a shuffle depending on how you vote. The vice mayor or vice chair is traditionally seated to their immediate right. And the most recent former mayor or chair, when applicable, is seated to their left. The presiding officer may adjust seating arrangements for meetings at their discretion. So, chair, you're allowed to move folks around, or you can go with that. It's up to you. There is a relative dress code. None of you have violated it, but the goal is to maintain some professionalism at these meetings. So ripped jeans, flip-flops, graphic tees don't fly. One thing we'd like to bring up is if you have any non-city issued identifiers, like specific brands or your own companies or things like that, try to avoid wearing those. Let me go through this a little faster. It's really just breaks down each section of our agendas. Our agendas are a little bit different than city council, but for the most part, I tried to align them. One section is a code of ethics. If you feel free to look at it, but elected and appointed officials are individuals with a wide variety of background. Well, I'm not going to read all this, but basically, if you feel at any time, we don't have this issue right now with the planning commission, which is great, but they are in alignment with each other. You have to have, based on your, like I said, ethics, harassment trainings. This basically, if you ever feel that somebody is violating that or violating this entire not code of conduct, but the governance manual, you can raise that issue with staff and our city attorney, and we'll act accordingly. Because there are, as you can see in the code of ethics, it'll go into basically at some point in here, the next steps as far as the compliance investigation and enforcement of anytime if you break this governance manual. And that pretty much concludes my presentation about this. If you have any questions or have any questions of Kevin, please let us know now. But you're also welcome to, when you read this more, if you have any in-depth questions, reach out to us and we'll get you some answers if you need.
Okay, thank you. I see it has a resolution, but then at the top of the resolution, it says city council. So
So that was the resolution that was adopted by city council. So you guys don't have an action on that.
Okay,
It just adopted the governance manual.
got it. Thank you. Approval of minutes? None.
Wait, can we go back to questions on that?
Oh, sorry.
Real quickly, is there not a stipulation on the commission where someone could represent or be appointed to the commission that is not necessarily in the city limits of Cloverdale, but within the zip code of Cloverdale? So people outside in Palomino could be appointed on the commission, correct? Don't we have one position available?
Yeah, that's correct. I think they have to be within 2 miles. There is some distant requirement. I think it's 2 miles.
So my recommendation is make sure you get that in there, that there is one position appointed to someone within a mile radius of the city that is appointed. Because it's a little different than the council or anything we've done in the past, so it's kind of separated.
Yeah, I don't think that's captured in there. So one benefit of this that I added at the very end
The living document?
was that it is a relatively living document.
Okay, there you go.
I'm allowed to have clerical edits for things like that to ensure conforming updates, and that's one that is adopted. If we can find it, we will definitely add it, and it doesn't have to go back to council.
In
for
the old
approval.
one, Mike, I would recommend we just use the same language.
Yeah, I would just
Okay.
make sure.
I don't think it doesn't mandate that there be someone, but they can apply and be
I'm
appointed.
surprised how much has come up in conversation, so I think you just should go into there.
No, totally. Yeah, we wanted to we didn't change much. We were just trying to merge the two documents, so that definitely is a
idea.
section that
We had it before.
we must have missed because I'm not familiar
That
with.
was my only
Sorry.
point of conversation.
Does anybody else have any comments? All right, great. Approval of minutes, there are none. Public hearings, there are none. Item F, new business, chair and vice chair appointments. Does anybody want to go first in nominating? We do chair first?
I would do the chair first, and then we'll do nominations, make sure that the person accepts the nomination or is interested in the position, and then do a formal vote.
I do have some thoughts on this. I think that with Esmeralda coming up soon, whoever is running those meetings should be somebody who is willing to be the sacrificial lamb, because you're going to be the face of the meeting, but also who is well experienced with meetings. And I'm not trying to insult anybody here, and I'm not trying to say myself, but somebody who is familiar with it, because I feel like we want to look organized and know what our processes are and what we're doing. So with that in mind, I was thinking, Commissioner Asay, would you be willing to be appointed as chair again?
I would if you, it's AC, by the way.
It's
just
AC,
so-
sorry.
No, no one gets it right in America. No one
It's
does.
okay.
Yeah,
I get
it's AC.
Springler a lot.
But
so-
yes, yes. But yeah, I'd be willing.
Okay. Sorry, I don't remember because it's been a while.
That's okay, because we haven't adopted official Rosenberg rules or any of those rules. We can be a little bit more loose about it, but
Do we go in for vote when somebody's been nominated, or do we?
yeah, because you have a nomination, we can treat that,
Remember,
you
yeah.
can treat it as a motion, and if there is a second, we can vote on the motion. But you also have the opportunity, if anybody else wants to make nominations, if there's any other interest in the chair,
Yeah.
I would suggest doing that first.
I second it.
All in favor?
Any other nominations?
Oh, sorry. It's been a while since we've done it. I'm forgetting.
That's okay.
Obviously not me, because I don't know what I'm talking about.
By the way, I thought you did a great job this year, so.
Great job.
Don't shoot yourself down at all.
I was just saying that it wasn't that. I was just thinking, like, because it took me a while to get my bearings, and sometimes I'm still off on the procedures. And like, I just feel like we don't want to look like that when we have a full packed house over contentious items. That was all I was trying to get at. And I mean, I don't know who else on here has served on boards and ran boards and been at this capacity other than you. So that's why I was thinking that maybe you're the best person to be the face.
Entertain this year.
And a reminder, they are 1-year appointments, so if you don't want to be it very long, it's only a year.
Yeah. So
The plank is right there.
Any other
Any other
nominations? I think we get a motion and a second for the record.
oh, I guess I'll make a motion to appoint Chad
AC.
AC, not SA, AC, as chair. Can I get a second?
I second it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion
All opposed?
yeah, sorry.
Cricket?
It was everybody, so
Totally.
motion passes.
All right, with that, you can do the ceremonial switch. You don't have to if
we're
you're
not
already into your chairs.
Okay. Do I finish up doing vice chair then? Or did
Automatic switch over to AC.
you have
He's now the
that?
chair.
Congratulations.
So we're now going to handle the second part of this item F1, which is the appointment of the chair and vice chair. Any nominations for the vice chair position for this next calendar year? No volunteers. By the way, I do support that other people should take on the chair or vice chair role. I think it's really valuable to, just you're furthering your career in life and just accepting the role and helping out. Shouldn't be intimidated because obviously we have always a packed crowd that really boisterously attacks us. So if anyone doesn't volunteer themselves, I'm gonna ask that Bill Wagey jump in. I feel like he is so good at helping out the community.
I'll second that. You feel
Plus, he's got a great barber.
Do you accept it?
Can we get a vote?
Yep.
Or any other nominations? Hearing none, can we get a vote?
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. All right. Motion passes 5-0. Have a new chair and vice chair.
Perfect. We'll move on to the next. We don't have to change the placards and everything. People in the crowd will understand this. But we'll move on to item F2, which is to consider the resolution recommending the City Council accept the general plan annual progress report for the 2025 calendar year. And Kevin, are you taking this on, or who's?
Just like every year, we're obligated by state law to present these reports to you and ask for recommendations to the council. Ralph's been working on these for many years. So, Mike, yeah, we got a presentation. I'll just turn it over to Rafael Miranda.
Sorry, Ralph, I accidentally shut it down when I closed mine. Be 1 second.
I was pulling it
We're
up.
going to do the internet version today because it's faster.
I was mentioned that we are going to, just like last year when we delivered this, we're going to kind of combine the presentation, and at the end we're going to recommend kind of both resolutions at once, if that's okay with the chair. It'll just it just kind of makes sense from us, our standpoint. It's the general plan and the housing element annual reports, which of course the housing element is part of the general plan, and it helps the presentation to move through sooner.
They are tied together, so makes total sense.
That's okay with the chair? Okay, so yes, thanks for everybody for being here tonight. This is our annual housing element and general plan annual report. We're starting with the general plan annual report. Next slide, please. Of course, the general plan is required by government, by the government code. It's required to have the 7 elements, and and also are the general plan APR, which is the annual progress report, is required to report to the state the city's progress towards implementing all the various policies and implementation measures within the general plan. Next slide, please. So you might get tired of me hearing saying, because of that, yeah, you might get tired of hearing me say in 2025, because as every year they just, not that the state doesn't care what we did previously, but they just want us to report what's happened on the previous years. Sorry, I'm trying to, got my own PDF going here. Mine's a little bit slower. I'll just follow it up there. Yes, so yes, of course, we got the 7 elements required by the general plan. I'll get to the updates later. The housing element is the one I'll be covering after. So all the, you can go to the next slide. All the slides that I'm going to be going through here are essentially pointing out, like I said, something that happened in 2025 and the various implementation measures or policies of that are contained within the general plan that these projects help further. So first one here in 2025, the Esmeralda project was submitted. This is an implementation matter out of the land use element to encourage major destination commercial uses such as resort conference facilities on an opportunity presented basis. Next slide, please. Sorry, yeah, you can just go back just real quick. So just what that is. Sorry, you can go back one more, Mike. This is just from the, so in 2025, they submitted their general plan amendment, the zoning amendment, their specific plan. The actual subdivision, the tenant map was submitted in 2026. So again, yeah, we're just talking about what happened in 2025. So this was just a page out of the specific plan. Next slide, please. an implementation measure out of the circulation element. Of course, the circulation element was updated in 2025. That's one of the major things that happened in the general plan for 2025. And this the improvements that are occurring and have occurred at the Alexander Valley apartment site help implement this measure to require new development and expansions of existing development to provide necessary street improvements for the demand of all transportation modes. So this implementation measure, again, like I said, the circulation element was updated in 2025, and elements or implementation measures like this were a carryover, but like the language, I think, was slightly changed. Like I think before it didn't say transportation in all transportation modes; it said something like pedestrians and bicyclists, but it's a little more all-inclusive now, of course. Next slide, please. And again, another implementation measure out of the circulation element to repair or install sidewalks in conjunction with public and private developments. And then it's not listed here, but there's another implementation measure or policy, actually more of a policy that talks about if it's possible to preserve shade trees like this. This is the Taylor Lynn Apartments across the street from the gas station that's under construction on South Cloverdale Boulevard there. So instead of, installing the typical curb gutter sidewalk, widening the sidewalk if you can and following a slightly irregular path so that the shade trees can be preserved. That's also in the general plan. Next slide, please. Soda Springs was in 2024, I believe, purchased by the city, and then this last year in 2025, the city has worked with Redwood Trails Alliance to work on plans to prepare the trail plan, and this is just some recent, nothing confirmed here, just potential names of the trails. Next slide, please. And from Parks and Recs element, provide parklands as determined by ad hoc committee. I have a couple, if I can get down to so this is some notes from Hector. So this was the playground equipment at Ferber Park, and then the
Second Street Park.
Gazebo.
the gazebo at Second Street Park. Next slide, please. So this one, and again from Hector, provided us photos. This is an example of implementing a measure out of the the Parks and Recs element, and this was one of the biggest critical accomplishments of the last year for Hector's crew. It was a 12-acre vegetation management project in the Soda Springs open space area. Next slide, please. So status of the general plan. So this is just a shot of some various major updates throughout the years. Of course, like I said, last year was the 2025 circulation element update. Potential updates in 2026 that could happen is the Esmeralda project, of course, and then also the Bidou Kale Phase 2. That's the tribe that south of the town submitted for their apartment project and wellness center project, and that's including a general plan amendment and some other requests for entitlements. Of course, those are still being reviewed. That's just, I don't want to say anticipated, but potential general plan amendments in 2026. Next slide, please. So that's kind of the end of the general plan one, so I'll just move smoothly into our housing element. Up to now in the presentation, I haven't shown or given examples of any housing element implementation policies, but we'll continue here. Next slide, please. So the housing element is one of the 7 elements required by the state, and like the general plan APR, this is required by the state, but this is the only one that's of the 7 elements that every year it expands, and of course it expanded this year, and it's even a little more confusing than last year's update. But next slide, please. So this was an ADU. This is one of our implementation measures, of course, to promote the construction of ADUs. And we do get about, a handful of ADUs a year. Last year, you'll see a little bit later, so towards our arena only counts for issued permits, not finaled. And of course, like something like this was finaled and they're moved in. But anyway, yeah, we issued 3 building permits for ADUs all last year. This is just a detached garage with an ADU on top. Next slide, please. So yeah, there's another implementation measure on our housing element to assist affordable housing developers, senior farm worker or low income housing. And so some of the pictures, I noticed when I was going through my current one, I was looking at, of course, last year's, and you might say, well, there was pictures of the same project in last year. Well, so this project actually got finalized in December of 2025. So like I was saying, I might have had pictures in it in the last one because building permits were issued in 2024, but they were finalized. And so anyways, various parts of the development phases of the project. But yeah, as you can see there's garbage cans out and cars in the front. So yeah, people have moved in. Next slide, please. Yeah, another policy or implementation measure in the housing element to promote infill development. And yeah, over the years, I think when I first started here almost like 11 years ago now, there was, there's those long lots and a few houses, but yeah, now there's 3 apartment projects on those 3 lots. So that's obviously, kind of infill development there. This one's not quite final. This will be Taylor Lynn Phase 2. They look really nice, but yeah, they're not totally final yet. Next slide, please. So this is the arenas page. This is the one that, of all, there is, I think I cut off the bottom. There's, I forget how many tables. I think there's 17 now or something like that. And some of these, like the columns just keep getting wider and wider. There's so many more columns now. But anyway, this is the money one here. Like we have, our arena was 335 for this 6 cycle planning period from 2023 to 2031. And we've produced 232 units so far, even though we only, issued 3 for last year, but we have made some significant progress towards our arena. And some of our low, affordable categories, we've already achieved that. I didn't promote it here, but like one of our housing element implementation measures, I put in, for the table, there's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of these tables and a lot of columns, and one of the columns is the status, is it in progress? Is it not started yet? Is it completed? And it's always nice to put it in there completed. And there's, even though we just adopted our housing element 3 years ago, 3 years ago now. Because one of our implementation measures said something about 100 units of affordable, within by 2028 or something like that. And we've done that. So that one's completed, which feels good to put that in there.
Hey, Ralph, the 3 above moderate that we did, were those ADUs?
Yeah, they are ADUs. So yeah,
That's all we did last year was 3 ADU.
I'll leave it at that they're above moderate. But
it's not much.
But I'm probably going to be able to get those, figure out a way to, in the state, not that I'm coming up with something, the state has, they've got videos and they've got, seminars and, they've got a YouTube thing and I've been watching and they say, they basically want you to put your ADUs as moderate and they say, put it as moderate and then here's the way you can back it up. And so I just got to.
It's odd that any ADU is considered moderate.
It should almost be, inherently.
It should be a low, yeah.
Yeah.
The point is, we only did 3. We did 3 units last year.
Yeah.
And they were ADUs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the point of the moderate though is, that's the hard one to fill. Like, so we've already completed our low and very low. But we haven't done any of our moderate yet. We've got 45 to go.
Generally speaking, the low and very low and all those, they get the tax credit financing. There's tons of money for that.
Yeah.
There's really no funding for moderate. So the fact that the state we have to basically do like a little rent survey to see that it meets what the rent would be for a moderate unit, and they're allowing us to count those as moderate is a good thing.
Yeah.
Because moderate is always our most efficient category.
Yeah.
Because there's no money. basically. So.
Read something. So that's next slide, please. And that's essentially our completes my presentation. And like I said, we'll recommend that put our recommendation together for the housing element and general plan APRs, and staff would recommend that the Planning Commission adopted both resolutions recommending that the city council acceptance of the housing element and general plan APRs for the 2025 calendar year. And staff is here to take any questions if you have any.
Hey, Ralph, not to put you on a spot, but Mike, can you go back one? Just in terms of our arena for above our market rate, which is just homes that aren't restricted in any way, just regular. How many have we made this arena?
Yeah, it looks like our above moderate arena was 149 of the 335, and does that say 34?
Are those all Baumgartner? There's been like a couple of Baumgartner.
Trying to think of what we did in 27 that was,
you know
Taylor
what?
Lynn Apartments. Those would be considered,
Yeah, because,
as
again,
long as there's no deed restriction or
That's
rent
it.
or sales price restriction, it's considered
Moderate.
just, no,
above moderate.
it's just like market rate. So it's whatever the market can bear, whatever, there's no restrictions on who lives there. So of our above moderate category, which we're the most efficient in, well, except for moderate, we've done 2, 27, and 3. The 3 was ADUs, the 27 was the Taylor Lynn Apartments, and I'm guessing that the other one was
Those
the
were
ADUs.
also, yeah.
So there hasn't really been any single
Well, actually,
family,
there might have been, I think
Maybe-
there was a single family or two in those.
yeah, like an individual
Yeah.
house on a lot.
Yeah, I would,
Will the phase 2 Taylor End be, they'll come in that category, right? Moderate? Or above
Taylor
Some.
moderate,
It's
yeah.
above moderate, so
well, they're already in there because this table, the numbers get added here when they're issued, the building permits issued, even though that one's not final yet.
Got it.
Those were reflected in that 27 there in 2024.
So just because it says above moderate, it could be multifamily. It's just a regular market rate apartment, whatever the landlord can get.
Sure.
There's no restriction, so that's,
Thank you.
Where was the original Taylor Lynn? Is that?
That was in in the previous housing element, yeah.
Okay, so we'll pull it back to the commission for any questions or comments regarding the report for this item. Any questions?
As
Comments?
our urban growth boundary continues to get filled over the years, how do they adjust the arena for lack of space to develop or to attract developers to actually put in like an above moderate income development?
so we get the arena from the Bay Area Association of Governments that,
It's statewide.
well, there's like these, they're called MCOGs, which is like,
Dome.
so San Diego has one, Los Angeles, Sacramento, and it's an association of all the governments of the 9 Bay Areas, and their planners, it's a mystery to me how they come up with the numbers, but it has to do with
They're already talking about it though, for the 7th cycle. It's
availability of transportation, jobs, I mean, all those kinds of things. Because in previous cycles, they have given us really high numbers, which were unrealistic, in my opinion, but it's, then they kind of went to availability of jobs, transportation, all the things that, can support big numbers of units. So there will be a time when they start thinking about the next arena, and I think we do have a little bit of
Yeah, already
input.
started, actually.
We do get a little bit of input on that. So I don't know if I'm answering your question, but
Yeah,
they come
it's-
down with these numbers. We go back and forth. We can,
To answer your question, I bet that is one thing that they do consider, growth, because, what the growth,
the amount of available
the
land.
number, or what was that, growth, management has
Yeah, the
been
urban
outlawed,
growth
but not growth
management.
boundaries. So those are still around, so those aren't going away. But yeah, you're right. That's probably something that they think of every year. And it's like a soup. There's a lot. That's probably one of many ingredients that goes into it.
It's complicated.
Yes.
Is there anything comparable that the state gets involved in for making land available for economic development type uses for the creation of jobs? Like how many
Your mic's not on.
areas you have for industrial or things like that, or is that?
I think the county gets involved where they'll help motivate it, but they're not going to
They're not mandating it
stipulate it,
like
mandate
housing.
it. The housing is mandated. And honestly, just to take a moment for all of us here, because I feel like this is a really important part of our reason for being here is the arena. I think if there's any more impactful point of what we do here is the RENA. And having worked at the county's Community Development Commission for years, the county has a mission, the city has a mission, the state has a mission. The state has regulations that we must adhere to. And we've met that when it comes to low income, which is, by the way, the state's biggest issue right now is state's housing. And so you hear about this all the time, state housing. State housing is a big issue. But we've met the state's housing requirements and then some. What we haven't met is the counties or the cities. Now, the county also has a housing requirement they would love for Cloverdale to take on. Personally, and I'm just speaking for myself, I'm not a big fan of the county's plan because I live in Cloverdale. They would love to shift a bunch of homelessness and other amenities and services and issues to our city because we have the land. So the county has a mission. None of it's mandated by the state. The state has a regulation we must adhere to. We've adhered to that. The city also has a regulation. And what I think you kind of pointed to, Kevin, which we should really understand is with housing, the city makes a certain amount of money from every house that's built in the city through impact fees, through taxes. But if we continually add low-income housing projects like we're mandated to by the state or the county, those have exemptions to both of those situations, and it actually cuts the city out and could actually cost the city tens of hundreds of thousands of dollars. It could cost the city money. And the ASTI project is one of those where I feel like we're going to acquire lighting and road and infrastructure improvement costs that is because of an affordable housing project. So I love affordable housing. I'm passionate about that, but when it's the right time, the right place, and when it's needed. And in this case, in our city, we can't really maintain our infrastructure until we start to have more moderate to higher end, which I think plays a part in what's about to come. So I think as we start to educate yourselves, because this question is going to come to us a lot over the next 5 years, anyone who's on a part of this commission is going to get asked about housing and water and how this all affects each other and really how this affects our budget and raising taxes. So please feel free to educate yourself. I'm willing to help guide in any way I can officially do, but ask questions where you can, because this is, we're in a great position. We're actually in the best position I've ever seen in the Bay Area, where we have met the state's regulation. We have all of the cards in the deck, and we should control what we can do. So here's my question for you all. With housing, how can we get ahead of housing projects in the city? How can we get more involved in these? Because it's a property owner who can do what they want to do on their property. How can we get involved and kind of guide what should be best beneficial for our city? And then my second question will be about how can we set commercial limitations? I do agree with the hotel, but how can we limit the number of hotels we have in our community to kind of create a cool community? So those two questions, commercial, residential, how do we get involved? And if we don't have that answer, this should be a serious agenda topic for us to discuss in the next meeting of how we can kind of plan ahead for this, because this is what this commission should be used for.
Yeah. I mean, I've thought about this a lot. I don't have a great answer. I mean, we discussed there hasn't been any just regular market rate subdivisions in this town since basically the cottages, which was pre-2010. And I mean, my conclusion is they can't make money for whatever reason. There are developable land there in town that are zoned correctly that we would, consider development. There's roads stubbed into these lots. It's prime for it. But I mean, my only conclusion is that they can't, the money's not there. Otherwise someone would be doing it.
I think the money's there. I think that the request hasn't been there yet. And I think when one building block goes down, it will all come down behind it. And I think we need to get ahead of that. This is where I've failed personally in Park City, Utah, where I failed personally in Healdsburg, and coming to Cloverdale. I don't want to fail the third time in making sure our community is protected and really holds all the cards to the deck.
Just
we
from
should control.
recent experience, like the, the open lot, behind Second Street Park, like the Zanzi's property. Like there was a project approved. It was approved years ago, right? There was one actually approved years ago. But yeah, like that one hit it, they submitted for something. It's been over a year now. Just been so long, I even kind of forget. It was like 64 units. But anyway, it's just their requirements. I think it was a lot like fire requirements, like because that site, just because it's got the creek going through, and because of the creek, they want developing, on both sides of it, and just fire access. Like I think that was one major thing, and it's in. I don't know if this is hurt or helped, or sorry if this has changed, because of the fire maps. But I think that site was already in.
And it's caused.
Yeah,
sure.
But yeah, I mean it's.
The new park relieving that fire risk because you're creating a break.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or even like, there's like a 4-lot. I mean, there's other reasons why this project hasn't moved forward yet, but like next to, Alexander Valley Apartments, there's like a little simple 4-lot subdivision. It's not even it's not even a major one. It wouldn't even go to the planning commission, but I think just some of the developers didn't experience. But again, yeah, just requirements. Like there's drainage, and fire stuff. It took them a while to get through fire. Mark was getting a little frustrated, but they got through fire, and now it's just, it's drainage requirements, public work requirements. So sometimes it just comes down to that kind of stuff and how much
I would
cost
be
that's
open
adding
to-
to them,
I'd
So
be
that's
open to
my
any
next
discussion.
question. How can we get more involved as a commission in how the open space development around the city is coordinated with fire mitigation efforts? I've been a part of a community who is really invested in moving this forward, and I think we can do it here, and we should do it here. I think we have a lot of grant reasons, being the city we are in the Bay Area and a fire risk, that we should try to play those two cards together. How can we be more involved as a commission to that? Specifically, we're talking about, like, you talked about Hector removed, or he did this great fire mitigation work on 11 plus acres or whatever, and the funding behind that. What funded that? How can we be more involved to help guide the city on those kind of efforts and tie with the trails organization?
Yeah, that was a grant that the fire district gotten for fire mitigation. I think it's several. We got a few years still, and it was X number of workers for X number of days, and that was really Jason Jenkins, the fire chief, who was able to secure that, along with the Geyserville. They're the same fire district now. They've merged. There is efforts to acquire the western slopes for open space that are happening informally. I know with certain council members who know landowners, and there's been discussions. The one behind City Park, we have been in discussions with those folks as well. I mean, a lot of it comes down to there's family issues, and half want to sell, half don't. I don't know if that's what you're asking, but there's been attempts to, because we're getting close with Porterfield and Soda Springs. I think we've had this conversation before, Commissioner Acey, while connecting the two. There's only a few parcels in between, so I don't know if I'm answering your question, but there has been discussions from folks who know those people who live up there for a long time, and just kind of getting the ball rolling. There's been discussions with Sonoma County Open Space, the Land Trust. I think there's interest. So
My last question and comment is about, you alluded in the general plan amendments that there is an anticipated amendment for Esmeralda. We know about Esmeralda, but it's also talking about the Dry Creek Rancheria project and 53 affordable housing units, a wellness center, and more. I've read other things about it really exploding to something interesting. So how can we get more in knowledge about this project as it starts to create? I know that there's different limitations, being it's a tribal land versus, and how that affects the city, but how do we get more involved in this agenda item?
I mean, the way it typically goes is they'll apply for what we call entitlements, which means that's the right to build and change the zoning and the design and whatever else they need. We review it, the engineers review it, fire reviews it, police, everyone reviews it. We submit comments, they make corrections and changes and amend things based on what we've said, and then we schedule for the planning commission. And then we go through all those conditions of approval. Fire wants this, that, and engineering wants the sewer line, the sidewalks, things like that. Let me think about it. I don't know if you want to be involved earlier or how we would do that, but let me think about it. That's our standard, is that comes in, we scrutinize it, bring it to you guys. Sometimes if it needs to go to council, if it's a zone change, we'll ask for a recommendation. Sometimes it ends with you guys and it's approved.
Are there more ways that we could, I guess, revise or look at our objective standards to give us more control over some of these projects earlier on?
Well, I mean, we definitely, we do, that's one of Ralph's jobs, is to compare the projects to the design standards. So that would fall in the planning department. So we do have those. They are probably a little older. I mean, some of them are updated related to the housing, which we were required to do for the state.
Yeah, those were actually updated in 2025.
Yeah, and so the stuff for the commercial, it's still good. It's just maybe could use a refresh. I mean, that might, we've got some planning documents that are getting a little older, and we're doing budgeting now, so we'll probably pick one of those to try to, get some support for, to update. The general plan is getting to the end of its life, and zoning, we a couple times a year, we bring zoning amendments to you. And I think we're working on one now. So I know it's tough. It's especially when it comes to like affordable housing. I know your hands are kind of tied. But for industrial stuff, we do have, design standards that we do apply. And you'll see, as they have in the past, asked for exceptions to those. If there's good reasons, then the planning commission, if it makes sense, will typically grant those or not. So that's kind of our process, and we always value your guys' input. I feel like you definitely add to the projects through your, questions and comments. And so, yeah.
I do have some questions since we have the arena up there.
So just about that the Dry Creek one though. Like Kevin was saying, with housing stuff now, with these state with the laws now and all that. If they weren't asking for the general plan amendment and the rezoning and subdivision and all this other stuff, especially because it's, and if they weren't doing the wellness thing, there's a lot of ifs there, because they are. But like if this was just a regular project, if they were building just the 53 apartments, low income, it likely wouldn't. There's very little that we can that we can add to that. That's the whole reason why we updated or adopted our objective design standards last year, and those specifically apply to multifamily housing projects like that, not single family. So there's all these exemptions coming out every year, and there is exemptions now for affordable housing, like it wouldn't no public review, but 53 and the wellness center and all that. Yeah, there's not they don't qualify for any of those exemptions, but
they have exemptions of impact fees. They have exemptions of parking. They have exemptions of so many other exemptions.
What, they do pay. Kind of in the dark on that particular project. What is the?
Yeah, I was going to bring that up under my report at the end. There's an application that we got to basically do phase 2 of the Baidukali project on the south end. It's multifamily and a wellness center. There's gonna be a lot more. It's gonna be coming to planning commission probably in the next few months.
Yeah,
but it's an apartment type setup.
It is.
Yeah.
So like a continuation of Baumgartner.
Right, can you turn your mic off?
Oh,
Thanks, Mike.
One, it's on tribal land. Two, it's south of the Baumgartner property. Yeah, it's a.
Just can you picture where they built their single, like the front lot of that?
Any other questions?
Oh, I had questions regarding the arena, because just as a refresher, because I don't know that everybody here has heard how it works, but obviously we're given these numbers and we have to plan like where we're going to put those numbers. But and I know there's no penalty if we don't meet them, but is there a penalty in what happens if we don't meet them, but we decline projects that could have met those numbers? What kind of enforcement is it? What happens? So
I mean, I think the state could decertify our housing element, which
Cut
could,
funding, we.
yeah, cut
Yeah, that's
funding,
why-
and, you know.
Yeah,
It's
you could-
usually funding, things like
some
that.
punishments beyond it, but yeah.
Right, so
A lot of them, just by their nature, wouldn't even come before us. They're ministerially approved.
Yeah, kind of like, yeah.
yeah.
I would also say that we're one of the only cities I've heard of in the Bay Area that's met the arena. The only one.
Not quite yet.
Not quite. Well, that's what I'm saying is
We'll
we're-
have 103 left.
Or the harder part of it.
Yeah, the harder part has been met, but I'm just saying, let's say we get a moderate income project
Great, yes.
and it gets declined, and then once we get to the end of this RENA term and we have not met that, and they look back and they say,
Yeah.
oh, but you had projects that you could have approved and you didn't. That's what I'm saying is like, I want everybody to understand that there are consequences if we don't meet those numbers.
Or deny, yeah.
Yeah, by denying, not, like, if nothing has come to us, then okay, we didn't meet the RENA, but we had planned for it. But if something has come to us and we say no, and we don't meet those numbers, then it becomes a different story, right? Then there's impacts.
If it has the correct zoning and it's affordable,
Right.
that's,
It was-
if it needs a zone change, like Ralph was saying, there's a little more discretion. But if if it's on the right zoning and it's affordable, I mean, we've been down, you guys, yeah.
I was referring more to like the moderate, because we know with affordable, our hands are pretty much tied in those situations. I was referring more to like moderate and above moderate housing. If we say no to any of that, and then the end of the term comes up and we haven't met our RENA in full, because we know that our low income could suffice for the moderate, right? Like meeting that. But if we end up with these numbers, maybe a few more at the end of this RENA, which is unlikely, and there are projects that we said no, that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, just like another example of like how serious the state is about that. Like your example is, if we denied something, like they're so serious that, there's even, of course there's penalties for denying something, but they're so serious about, wanting cities to
Meet their.
meet the rate and approve presidential projects, and sort of get out of the way of them. Is like there's even state laws now. There's not just one. There's multiple ones, not about like the processing and like so we approve a project, and they submit for their building permit. There's timelines. Like if the city doesn't issue a building permit, within a certain amount of time, they've even they've even added like monetary fines to it.
But I think the key here for us to really catch is that you said it earlier that it's hard for developers to really invest in Cloverdale and spend the money on developing stuff. I would say that it's very easy to get low-income housing developers to come to Cloverdale versus a moderate or higher-end income housing.
Yes.
And I get that the community loves this small-town feel and wants to avoid it from becoming the Bay Area or Healdsburg. I hear this over and over again. I get that too. But there is a balancing act you have to play in order to meet the needs of the city and still not look like our neighbor. And how can we, I really feel like we hold all the cards and there's an ability to make this work in our favor in every time, but we have to attract the right developers. We want to attract, we need to get ahead of these projects and really start to help direct and guide them to do what we need as a city, not as they want to on their own. And that's where I think we can meet in the middle. Sorry, that was my 2 seconds. Any other comments or concerns about this?
I just think that's a really great point, is that because of how much low income we have hit and how much we have met, and to your point that low income is requiring infrastructure on our part that we're not being compensated for because we're not getting tax revenue from it, right? We're not getting property tax revenue. And so without other offsetting developments, it's really hurting us as a whole. So either like we don't build other types of housing and we just get forced to build all this low income housing, then our taxes have to go up, right? Because they're not paying the taxes for it. The low income housing isn't paying the taxes for it. So whose property taxes have to, right? Without new developments, that means everybody else here who owns a home is going to be paying more property taxes to pay for our schools and the infrastructure that we have to put in to go to the low income housing, because low-income housing is a necessity and it's great, but
No,
when we're forced to do it and like, they don't care where those funds are coming from to tie all this together.
we do have an ability to control even low-income housing, and that is to require mixed use, and that's through pre-zoning and kind of forcing this mixed use. And mixed use means we can add commercial with low-income housing. And I personally think that that is great for every type of low-income housing project, is to always have mixed use. Because then you have this retail or this tourism tax or these other taxes that could apply to, and also for someone who's in a low-income housing, it provides easier services for them locale. So it works hand in hand. So what we really need to work on is, if affordable housing comes our way, make sure it has mixed use with it. And then really focus on trying to get the moderate to high end to fill in these voids. But what I would really like to put a point across and work on this next year to do is, how can we set moratoriums ahead of this? I want to balance this city out. We're getting very south heavy. How do we get away from south heavy, where everything's moving to the south end of town? All the businesses, you can see there's a lot of space and land. If Esmeralda comes in, Bob McGardner comes in, these projects were very south heavy. How do we bring something to the north end of town? And how do we reuse the motels that we have in town before we allow 50 hotels in town, which is where I think Healdsburg went wrong, was allowing, they started with, when I was running hotels, they had 3 hotels in Healdsburg. Now there's so many hotels. I think they oversaturated that. And I would love to kind of set it up where we can try to balance and say, can we try to rebuild first before we readdress and allow more commercial properties to bring in hotels? Because once one falls down, and I'm a hotel developer by history, that's my background. Once one goes down, you're going to see 5 others following right behind them, and we need to set a moratorium now, is my goal.
Want me to respond to that?
I don't know.
It's tough. That's going to be, yeah.
Yeah, I think as a small town, we need to do whatever we can to work to
I
get
gotcha.
ahead of this.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Bill.
Well, I don't know what you can do with those motels. They're there. The owners must be happy with what they're doing with them, because they haven't changed in the several years I've been here.
No, but what happens when you set a moratorium, and I've done this in different cities, where you say you're only allowed so many hotels per area, and what they can do is they can reinvest in these other existing motels to refurbish them. You're going to have someone with money coming in saying, I want to build a hotel, but I can't. Can I buy this and rebuild this? And you'll get this forced improvement through land that's already there, and we don't have to add more hotels, motels. We're just improving what we already have. It actually forces improvement, which is a strategic way most cities use.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, it just changes the way an undervalued asset is utilized, right? So,
Yeah, sprawling is growing wide and fast. I think our landscape kind of helps prevent that, and it's great that we have that, the hills and that, and the river, and vineyards personally kind of help protect us from sprawling. But I think we need to be strategic with what we have and fill in the vacancies. Sorry. Any other questions on this item? Is it a voting item? Yes.
Yeah, there's a resolution.
Two.
Two.
Can I get a motion on, it's a combined resolution for both items F2 and F3, to consider the resolution recommending the City Council accept the general plan annual progress report for the 2025 calendar year, and also to consider a resolution recommending the City Council accept the housing element annual progress report for the 2025 calendar year. Can I get a motion or any other?
yeah, I'll make the motion.
So one caveat, when we do the resolutions, though it's not in the governance manual prescriptive per se, we do need you to read the resolutions by title only,
Title.
just so we don't have to read out the entire resolution for it to be approved. So if you want to do both resolutions for both items,
How about if I read the resolution and you can?
There you go.
The first resolution is a resolution of the City of Cloverdale Planning Commission recommending to the Cloverdale City Council the acceptance of the general plan annual progress report for the 2025 calendar year. And the second is a resolution of the City of Cloverdale Planning Commission recommending to the Cloverdale City Council the acceptance of the housing element annual progress report for the 2025 calendar year for the adopted 2023 to 2031 housing element, and submittal of the report to the California Department of Housing and Community Development, and the Governor's Office of Land Use and Climate Innovation.
I'll make that motion, yes.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Can I get a vote?
All approved?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Both motions pass 5-0 with alternate commissioners Frankston, Williams abstaining.
Next item is commissioner reports. Are there any commissioner reports? Or anything you'd like to mention to the commission? Yes.
With regards to, I think it's 205 South Cloverdale Boulevard, used to be a garden in there. I guess it was back in early December. I met with Commissioner AC and a couple of the city council members, along with the now owners of the property, Dahlia and Sage, the Kelders, and they went through their view and idea of what they want to do. They're looking to build a community market and move Dahlia and Sage to that location. And we kind of went through some of the problems that we foresaw as far as egress and ingress, because it's a little tough getting in and out there. And there's also some older heritage trees that need to be addressed and whatnot. And that's something that I've since seen. They've done surveying and whatnot, and I suspect that that'll be brought before the Planning Commission sometime later on this year as well. So, but I was excited to see that there's going to be some development in the downtown area.
Thank you. Any other commission reports? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item, the department reports. We still one of yours?
Yeah, just real quick. Alternate Commissioner Williams was reappointed at the last council meeting for 2 years. So thank you for stepping up and doing that. Mike discussed the community garden that was discussed at the last last council meeting. We do have a potential location, but we're just trying to gauge the community on other locations possibly, or if there's support to get enough volunteers. I think the city will try to get it up and running and hopefully turn it over to volunteers to keep it going. We've been working pretty favorishly with Esmeralda behind the scenes with our engineers, attorney Alex Mogg, with the fire building, all the people. So they're still trying to get to the planning commission in May. So we'll see if we can hold to that. There's been lots and lots of comments going back and forth on their submittals. So that will be interesting. One of the ideas that we're going to be bringing to the city council next meeting is the idea of this entertainment zone. I don't know if you guys have heard about it. The state enabled legislation that allows cities to define a geographic area within their town, which in our case would be somewhere downtown, where you can have this entertainment zone. Long story short, you can have open alcohol on the street. You can participating. We're getting more details. We've been working with the police chief. This may or may not happen, but if you're interested, it's going to be discussed at the next planning commission, or excuse me, I keep saying that, city council. There's a lot of parameters on it. Businesses have to participate, and there's times where you have it. It's not all the time. It could be for events. It could be weekends. So there's a lot of different things. If you're interested, tune into the city council meeting. We're going to give a presentation, just see if they're interested. Santa Rosa's doing it. San Francisco has a few.
Temporary use.
We would probably, if they want to do it, we'll probably say we'll come back and review it in 6 months. But there's a lot of details to it, so I'm happy to talk to you individually or whatever. But if you want to come down to the city council meeting and give your input on that, there'll be a nice report that we're putting together that'll go out Thursday with a lot of the information.
So Friday Night Live? Sorry, that's what you just described. That's what it sounded like. We're already doing that? How does it differ?
It's a little different. Well, you'd be able to walk into La Tequila and walk out with a beer in your hand and walk to the next place,
All right.
provided certain parameters. There's a lot of parameters on it. I mean, it may or may not be a good fit for Cloverdale, but we thought it would be at least worth a discussion at the council to see if it has merit. Mike's been working a lot on it, so I don't know.
Actually allows the city more control over limitations of a state regulation. So it kind of gives the city more control than the state.
All right.
I think as far as like day, I think you can choose, or through the creation of it, days and hours. I don't think it's like if it's adopted, it's in this zoning district 24 hours, until it gets. I think
It has
that's
to be
part of it.
posted, documented, and all
It's
that.
not 24/7.
Yeah, you can create that through the process, I believe.
Mike, you want to say something?
I was basically, there's an overarching ordinance that the council would have to adopt that allows for entertainment zones with parameters. And then there's a second tiered management program as part of the ordinance. And that's something that where the city manager, the police chief would really be able to say, these are the exact hours, these are the exact dates that we're doing it. So right now, say it was proposed for like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, noon to 9 p.m. something
Between
like that.
these blocks.
Between these blocks, it's very well regulated. But the management program can adapt and adopt without or it can change basically without council having to go back to council each time. So we're, like Kevin said, we are just looking to see if it's something that the council is interested in us pursuing. And then we'll reach out to the businesses. We'll have a study session with the various entities that can participate. For example, like liquor stores cannot. It's very dependent on their ABC license. They already have to be have the license to serve alcohol food. But
it ties
to not get into the details, it really is basically an economic development driver to allow people to go into our areas. Very Friday Night Live-esque, but you'd be able to go to Wolf House, walk down the street.
Wine walk.
It's more of the wine walk but we're working with the Chamber of Commerce. We're getting feedback from them, from the Arts Alliance. We're going to be working with several entities, but we are giving the presentation next Wednesday.
Yeah,
So
if you're
give a little bit
interested,
more
come
information.
down. We'd like to hear what you think. So that's the end of my report.
Perfect, thank you. Any direction on future agenda items from the commission?
Yeah. I'm not sure what it'd take to actually, actually delve in a little bit deeper into what you were talking about, moratorium on hotels. I think that would warrant some conversation, but I'm not sure if this is the actual venue for that or how that works, right?
I second that. I think that too often we skip the planning commission meeting because of lack of agenda items, and I would love to see some of those bland items that we discuss rather than vote on, that we can discuss about how to help guide the city. You guys are short-staffed. I get this. So how can we help you, help legal, try to find what solutions might be best for creating a future? I would love to see those types of items on there. Even getting ahead of, like I said, fire mitigation and tying with the different parks and the trails organizations that are kind of surrounding our city. I think we can kind of help coordinate that if we can bring those agenda items more often. Any other?
So real quickly, one caveat that has changed with the governance manual, when we are looking for a direction from the commission, whenever there is any item that you want to have staff pursue in any way, we want to get a consensus from the entire commission to make sure that that's something that.
So one at a time.
Well, no, it's more, if you bring up, for example, Commissioner Carney brought up the moratorium on hotels. If that's a discussion item, you'd want to look and make sure that all five or the other four, or at least a majority of the commission is in favor of that coming forward.
Perfect. So I would love to rephrase it just to appropriately put this in this place. I would love to discuss as an upcoming item the setting limitations and expectations for nightly rentals within the city.
For what?
Nightly rentals. That includes affordable, or it includes Airbnbs, any type of hotel, when it's considered short-term rentals versus long-term rentals. Long-term, anyone could rent their house out for a month or more at a time. That's a totally different expectation than the short-term. The short-term includes hotels and resorts, and that's where you can kind of have that discussion about limitations. We have a great moratorium on Airbnb in this town, but we have no moratorium on hotels.
So at that point, since that is something that they would like to see go forward, you just check if we have a majority of the commission, so staff has
Get
clear.
a consensus. It's not a vote. It's more of a consensus.
It's not a vote. You have the option to do a vote if there ever is some confusion, but if it's general consensus, we just want to make sure the entire commission's behind that.
Yeah,
future
I'd like to
item.
concur with the commissioner in that regard, with regards to the housing element. And I'd also like to go back and perhaps take up the issue that you previously mentioned, which is to see what we as a commission can do to try and help promote additional projects being brought into Cloverdale. I think that's really important. I think it's really important that the public knows that different projects come with different revenue generators for the city, and to the extent that we're constantly getting low-income housing projects, which is great, but that's going to cost us as a city, and we need to try and find a way to offset that. I mean, we do have about $1 million a year structural deficit, and it's just going to get worse unless we're able to find a way to merge the desire to keep Cloverdale the wonderful small town it is and be able to provide the services that the residents of the town really need. So I'd really like to see us move forward with both
I have
those two
two
things.
kind of agenda items. One about the kind of the discussion of short-term rentals, and the other is to the commission being more impactful in the initial development of ongoing property development. Any other agenda items?
I do have one. I think it was 2022 that we passed the water infrastructure improvement. I would like to get an update on where we're at with that and a refresher, because I think most people are new since we did that, how that changes what we can provide, because, you know, as we're talking about the Potter Valley project being removed, and everybody, I think the last report on our water capacities and was done in like 2020 before we did these improvements. So I think it's important to get a refresher on how that is going to impact us in the positive moving forward.
And just to clarify this a little bit further, you're not asking for a new study, which costs.
No.
Okay.
I'm asking for
Just an updated report on
refresher, a report on where we're at in it and how it is going to impact us, or what that report entailed, so that everybody else on the commission, and just for me for a refresher, knows how that helps us, I guess.
And can I add a wish to that list? Can we
He wants
find,
to stay.
can we find the letter? The 1911 letter, the pre-1914 or pre-1911
Water rights.
water rights.
Yeah.
Can we present it at that agenda item? That would be great to go on record for the city to see that it actually exists. And, yeah.
I will report back on these.
Do we have a consensus on that
We
one?
have a consensus on first item, the short-term rental.
Yes.
Any issues with that?
Yes.
Any issues with us being more impactful on the urban development in the initial phases?
No.
Any issues with us adding this last item about the water study, more of an updated water report for the community?
No.
So 3 items. Any other guidance? I think this is a very productive meeting.
It was. Way to go. What are you saying to me?
Any other items? If not, then I will move to the next regular meeting of the Planning Commission scheduled for April 7th, 2026. And we adjourn this meeting at 7:18. Thank you.